Next up, almost every farm or ranch operation deals with semi-trucks and farm equipment traveling on public roadways. So how do you protect your equipment in case of an accident? Market Journal's Maddie McIntosh has the story.
Liability is important for all farm and ranch operators to consider. Nebraska Extension educator Jessica Groskopf says there's a few different ways to reduce liability prior to an accident.
So there's several ways that we can reduce liability. And the first way is to make sure that our drivers have background checks and that we've maintained our vehicles and then we're following transportation regulations. You should also have an insurance policy, both for the vehicles as well as an umbrella policy for your operation. And then also you might want to consider something like an entity to place some of those higher risk assets into.
When it comes to commercial driver's licenses, Jessica says it's not necessarily needed for Nebraskans.
So Nebraska is a part of MAP 21, which is a law that exempts vehicles with farm license plates from requiring a commercial driver's license. So farmers and ranchers actually do not need a CDL for those farm plated vehicles.
But operators should have two types of insurance to help protect them.
First is a regular vehicle policy, and the second one that they should look at is an umbrella policy for catastrophic accidents. So one is specifically for the crash and the other is the additional liability should you be sued, that you have a larger policy that would then cover your operation.
Finally, Jessica says creating a farm entity is a great way to protect your personal assets and separate them from those of the farm or ranch operation.
We get a lot of questions about whether or not equipment and semi-truck should be placed in some sort of an entity like an LLC. And what that does is it separates one's personal assets from those on the farm. And that can be an important tool if you're saying this is the business entity. So if there is an accident, what happens is the entity would be sued and your personal assets would be separate from that. One of the challenges, though, is that you need to consider what assets are placed into that entity. So for example, you might just have an entity just for the vehicles that are going over the road, but know that that entity has to be operated as a business and your organization papers will state what that means. And most of the time that means that they need their own checking account, that they need to pay their own expenses, and that they need to host annual meetings. And so as we look at that, we need to make sure that we're doing the things in that. Usually it's like an operating agreement, so that if we get sued, the person suing us can't look at our entity and say, well, they're operating that like it's in their personal side. So we really need to make sure that that business entity is operated separately from the personal finance. Otherwise, there's no point to having that entity because it transfers the liability.
Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Maddie McIntosh.